Hey guys, so I feel like I left a huge thing out of the video that I made yesterday where I was talking about how I have walked through some beliefs and gone back in time to find the origin in order to let them go and in order to resolve them and have them stop creating and the same experience or, a ghost experience like it so that, you just keep reliving this thing over and over again. The original question that I was responding to was something like, why is this belief still plaguing me? Like, why can't I believe someone could love me? Or, I was saying for me, why is it that I can't believe that, a man could love a woman who is imperfect physically and whatever. You can watch that video. And I talked, I think, a little bit, I'm having a hard time remembering what I said in this video. It's been 8 hours only, but I've been really busy today. I don't remember exactly what I said in that video, but I was talking about how I had this belief that I was kind of really rotten to the core, and that this stemmed back to childhood, and I wasn't able to put two and two together, despite being in a family of people who discuss things like this all the time. I have an aunt who is, my woo-woo wine aunt, who brought this stuff up all throughout my teenage years and beyond. And I just never was able to put it together. It was unconscious for me until I kind of found this backdoor way to fix it. And only once I had fixed it did I know it was actually a thing. And then it just kind of all revealed itself to me. I had decided, because my dad left when I was 12, that there was something really wrong with me. But I did not put that event together with there's something really wrong with me. They seem totally separate to me. And I felt more like the something was wrong with me caused my dad to leave than my dad leaving had caused me to feel that way. I just didn't have that at all. I didn't understand that at all. I just kind of settled on there's something very wrong with me. And, in my late 30s and early, when I was 40, at the beginning of my 41st year, I guess, just after my 40th birthday, I was still kind of in the place of feeling like I was rotten to the core, but that I had done everything I could to compensate for it. And I was very accomplished. I was in great physical shape. I'd done everything I could. And I'm like, this is the best I've got. Will anyone ever love this? Can they? And it's funny because, I've had relationships in the past with people who loved me. It's weird. It was when I wasn't in a relationship with somebody who loved me that I had all these issues. And so I was saying in the last video that you can look at these experiences from childhood and try to make the connections. Because all of the things that you think you're upset about, the first lesson in A Course in Miracles is you're never upset for the reason you think you are, which applies here. A Course in Miracles takes it a lot further. But for the purposes of everybody who's watching this, let's just apply it to this situation. You're never really upset with what's in front of you. What you're upset with is some idea that you have. And the idea that you have is from some past wound. Anytime you get upset or angry about something, there's a deeper thing there. It's not just the surface issue that happened, or it almost never is. There's something in the past that is projecting itself outward and giving you this experience over and over and over again. You're creating this over and over. You're experiencing this. Other people who have the exact same set of circumstances would react completely differently based on whatever their set of beliefs is. So it's never the thing. It's always you. And so what I neglected to talk about was how exactly I fixed this. Because the person that sent the email commented and basically said, this did not help me because just understanding a belief doesn't make it go away. And that is true. It doesn't. It doesn't stop necessarily creating things, because just understanding it is an intellectual thing. And what really changes things is when you start to feel the truth of this thing that you've intellectually accepted. So you look at a belief, you go, this is creating something. Well, great. It continues to create things, even if you intellectually understand that it's correct or incorrect or false or true, whatever. you still get to the point where you create another projection. And if you don't do something at the time that this happens, it will just stay the same, I think, for the most part, for most people, in most circumstances. What I did was, so I had this belief that I was like rotten to the core. And I was just like hell-bent, this has to change. Help me, higher self, whatever. Something has to help fix this. And what happened was I was having an obsessive loop combing through a relationship I had just elected to end. So I wasn't like abandoned in this relationship. I left it. But I continued, and I thought that was the right thing to do, but I continued to comb through the relationship. It was exhausting. It would not stop. I would run through everything I did wrong in this relationship, examining it, thinking about it, feeling bad about it, thinking, would things have been different if I didn't do this thing this day? Did I cause this by not having enough self-respect in this situation? It was like that over and over. And I was saying to myself, look, you did the right thing, stop. And it would not go away. And I stumbled on something that said, when you experience obsession like that, obsessive loop like that, that's often a response to childhood abandonment. People do this. They blame themselves for the abandonment, and then they go through things over and over again to try to never recreate that experience again. It's just, I don't know, I read that somewhere at one of these moments, probably at like 1 a.m. when I could not fall asleep because this loop would not turn off. And so I said, okay, well, I don't feel like I was abandoned because my dad just exited his marriage with my mom and our family and was still nearby. I still saw him, we still spent holidays together, whatever. So I didn't feel like I was just abandoned. I never associated the word abandonment with me. But I said, okay, well, I'm experiencing this thing. I have this, I have something in my past that could be called an abandonment. So I better just, assume that that's what this is. And I decided this all on my own. This is my technique. I'm sure somebody else has come up with this in the past. I'm sure it's not, that mind-blowing, but I did this and it worked. I just said to myself, when this obsessive loop shows up, it's obviously not about last boyfriend. This is obviously about dad. So when the loop comes up, instead of thinking about what I did wrong in this relationship with last boyfriend, I am just going to recognize that this is about my childhood abandonment. And I'm going to talk to that instead. I'm going to say to myself, nothing I could have done would have prevented dad from leaving, because that's the truth. How much of my fault could it be if I couldn't have done anything? I recognized and thought about it for a minute, and I just thought, if I was a perfect child, would that situation have been different? The answer is no. It wasn't about me. And of course, in the time since then, once you shift your mind, then you see everything. But in the time since then, I've realized more and more and more who my dad was, what he went through, where he was at in life at that time. And the truth revealed itself more and more that it had nothing to do with me. But so when the obsessive loop started, I immediately addressed the original wound. And I just said, nothing I could have done would have prevented this. It wasn't my fault. It was dad, and nothing was going to change this. Nothing was going to change this. And I felt instantly when I said that to the obsessive loop that was starting, it was just like an instant relief. I mean, I can't even describe the feeling. I think you need to find the right words. I made a video this morning about words that's going to go up tomorrow. I'm going to put it up after this, out of order. But for me, the words that I think, the right words produce a feeling. And this was the most instant feeling of relief. And it only took probably a day or two, because this obsessive loop was so nauseating. It just kept coming up and coming up. It took like less than a day of doing that for the obsessive loop to just completely stop. And for me to start feeling, I felt such a tremendous sense of relief. It was like coming out of a fog. It was like coming out of a bad dream. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, hey, I'm not rotten to the core. Holy shit. This has been here the whole time. This non-rotten core is what's been creating all these good things in my life. So it was just a tremendous relief. And obviously having that experience and experiencing that relief made the unconscious come into the conscious. And I started putting two and two together about all kinds of things having to do with that and how it's influenced me. And, I started having memories of childhood, or I started, being aware of things I already knew about from childhood and saying, well, that really doesn't fit in with that. Like, relationships I had with other members of my family where like I was their favorite and they loved me so much and thought I was a great kid. I was like, well, that really doesn't fit in with me being rotten to the core. And as like old thoughts would come up, it was like there was a new voice in my head defending me, saying, no, like, just whatever. We don't need to go into that, but like, it was just defending me. Anytime that old thing would come up to remind me that I'm a piece of shit, a new thing was there saying, nope, that's not true. That's just not true. The evidence doesn't support that, or whatever. So, to the person that wrote the email, I can't do this stuff for anyone other than myself, I don't think. Like, I could give you a clue if I knew, but I really don't have the energy, unfortunately, to spread around to everybody's childhood wounds as much as I would love for everybody to. I mean, look, within like 5 days, it was like living an entirely different life. There's no way to describe an experience like that. It was like walking out of a bad dream that I'd been living in for 30 years. Nothing's ever been the same since then. I would never go back to that time before that for anything. And so I think this is where every person has to do the work for themselves. You have to kind of recognize intellectually and just accept the things I'm upset about right now. Well, there may be something there. There may be some validity to my problem right now. But the majority of what I'm experiencing is not from this situation. It's not from this person. It's not from this relationship. It's from something else. And this relationship is simply a manifestation, or this situation, or this whatever, is just a manifestation of the original thing that caused me to create a bunch of beliefs or a worldview that supports this thing being here. You have to figure out what that thing was. Or, if you don't want to sit around figuring it out, at least strongly intend for it to be revealed to you. Like, you have to want this, I think. You have to want to go through this. You have to be ready for this. And sometimes people have to manifest the same situation over and over and over again until they just get so tired of it that they're like, fine, I haven't wanted to deal with whatever this is, but I'd rather deal with it than go through this one more time. That's definitely where I was at after that relationship where I was having the obsessive loop. I was done. I think the original situation needs to be determined as best as it can be. And you might just have to try some stuff. Maybe I got lucky on the first try there. I think the important thing is to recognize when you are reacting to a ghost and talk to the original problem, not the current one. And I think you'll know if this is true, because if you think about that, like if you hear the words, you're not really upset about this thing, and I think you should be able to feel a little bit of the truth of that if it's the case. And I think it is for most people most of the time. Because you know what? Once you have a lot of those old belief systems debunked or removed or whatever, you find that you're not that upset at things in the world anymore. Like it's all just an experience you're having. And I don't know, that's been the experience for me. And, I've been really on a mission for this since that experience, because after that I was like, what else is ruining my life that I can just like fix in 1 minute with the right words at the right time? And I've been going through the other really big thing for me, which is the self-worth related to looks and food and weight and all of that. And you know, I'm almost to the point again. I'm almost to the point again where I would say, you know, I wouldn't go back to 2021 for anything when this all started. Just because, but this has been such a big, you know, this wasn't like one big belief is supporting this whole illusion. This was like 10,000 roots driven into the ground, and one by one, and then, you know, stop and reevaluate, and am I still not happy? And, you know, all of these perspective shifts. This was a much more long-term, with a lot of moving parts, experience that had some, you know, pretty shitty things in it I did not enjoy. But overall, it's been really good. And it's like, it's so worth it, because everything that you work through and get rid of is gone. It's gone for good. It can't come back. It doesn't return. And it's just like everything gets lighter and lighter and lighter. And that, for me, is what this entire experience is at this point. I don't know if there's a iteration after this, or if this is just basically how I live out the rest of my life, just continuing to do this stuff. But I feel pretty good in general. I'm pretty happy. And I don't know. I'm really thankful that that incident for me happened, that I was seeking this thing from this point of just being exhausted, and that I was finally ready to, you know, face the boogeyman, which it's always nothing. It's always not a big deal. It always feels like you're gonna die if you acknowledge things that you haven't wanted to acknowledge or whatever. And, you know, for some people, I think you might need to experience that type of stuff with someone, because there is some childhood trauma that from what I understand, it's not beneficial to go through that stuff by yourself. But for me, I was able to do this. I don't know. This wasn't like, I didn't have some horrible trauma, like, thing that happened to me personally or to my body or anything like that. So I think that's why it was a little safer for me to just sort of explore this on my own. But, you know, you're gonna have to figure that out for yourself also. So I hope that helped. I hope that was the missing piece from the last thing, because, yeah, just recognizing it isn't going to change it necessarily. I think sometimes it does, but in my case, it was the application of that idea in the middle of this illusion that was happening, that just sort of like the whole illusion just disappeared. It was crazy and amazing. And that was a few weeks before then I was open to the totally unexpected revelatory download. I think it was December 2nd or 3rd, and that was like around Thanksgiving. So it was only like 2 weeks from that time to where I had that moment, that revelatory moment, that I'm creating literally all of this. The month and a half of bliss that followed that. That's another thing I left out of the other video. I was talking about revelations, and I was saying, oh, there's this marker of a revelation that you can't miss. And then I didn't say what it was. It's a period. It's like a complete suspension of doubt, and it's like a complete lack of separation follows that. I had that both times. I remember when I was in my early 20s and I had the first one, I remember I was thinking, I don't know why I remember this. I thought probably because I was so afraid of being alone at that time. I remember thinking, wow, I feel like I could be alone for the rest of my life, because it's like God is right there. Whatever my concept of God was, I was just like, I feel so connected. I feel so not separate. I feel the opposite of alone. I feel totally connected, and I'm laying here alone in bed at 1 a.m. You know, I could be in a hospital bed when I'm 85 with no one there to take care of me, which was and still kind of is my biggest fear. I was like, I could be in that situation, and it's like somebody's closer than in the room with me. I felt so connected, and it was so blissful. And it was the same thing in 2019, and same thing happened within about 6 weeks. That was destroyed, and both times for me, it was destroyed by a romantic situation cropping up. So lame. Anyway, I really hope that helped the emailer in some way and everybody in some way. I've talked about this before on the channel, probably better, because I know I went way more into this in a video that I made sometime in the spring of 2020, not long after I made this channel, started making this channel. I think I went in depth into that whole thing a lot more than I just did. But it was that application of the truth in the face of this illusion that changed everything, and it changed it in like one day forever, in like a 180-degree kind of way. It was, if I had to divide my life into two segments, it would be before that day and after that day. It was that life-changing. So I hope that helped. Have a great day.